back. Before you wanna record your first video, you should check if your SD card has enough free space. Hi, welcome to my first ever YouTube video, which kinda is not my first YouTube video, but we just pretend it's my first YouTube video that I'm actually gonna put online. So welcome to this month wrap up and reading. I read more than I have since middle school in a month. Yeah, if you do not know me, I'm Fabie and I love to read in my free time, and I'm trying to get into it, especially in uni, because it's such a relaxing activity on the day and it's way better than spending so much time on my phone, if I'm honest. Usually I just tell myself that it's not that bad actually, yeah. Okay, so this month I read 8 books. It depends on if a novella is one book for you or not, because it's like around 100 pages and I would not call that a book. So if you would count them in separately, then it would have been like 9 or 10 books, I guess. But yeah, and we're going to start with the first physical book that I read this month, which is also the only physical book that I read this month, because I got my ebook and now I'm carrying it everywhere with me because it's way easier, because I'm so afraid of damaging any of my books. And this is called Sapphire Blue in English, I guess. It's a German book and I really enjoyed it as a teen. And now I picked it up again and I already read the first one, which is called Ruby Red, and it's about time traveling. I read it in Dutch because I'm studying in a Dutch university. I'm studying in English obviously because I don't know Dutch, but I'm trying to study Dutch at the moment, and I thought what better way is there to read a book that I already have read, so I already know the story, in a language that I don't know completely, which was kind of funny in between because there were all these things happening that I knew would happen, but somehow like the situation kind of felt like it was a total different one because I was not really understanding what they were saying in the situation. And basically it's about a girl that discovers that she can time travel, and well, it's this whole organization, and they actually thought their cousin had this gene that makes you time travel, but as it turns out it's her and she's not prepared for anything, and they have this whole mission going on, and it's really really fun to read, and it also has a lot of closed door romance, which I enjoy. So yeah, you should definitely check it out. I read on this Tolino, which, it's basically a Kindle, right? But just like with the difference that it's a different brand. So I read them all on here, and I read the first one that I read this month was called Shadow Me. So originally I wanted to wait, well, Shadow Me is the 4th book in the series of Shadow Me series, if you know that. It's a really 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 great series, and I originally wanted to read the other books also in translation, in German translation, not because my English was not good enough. No, it was good at that time, but I have the first 3 books in physical version at home, and obviously the English edition would have been different and it would have not fit into my bookshelf the way the German editions do. So I wanted to wait. Well, kind of escalated. I don't know when this series originally came out, but I read it when I was like 13, I guess, around the age of 12 and 13, and then I waited. Almost like my second most favorite series, obviously behind the Shadow Artist series, because yeah, I wanted to wait, and this turned into waiting until well, essentially 21 years old, which is a long time. And then I was like, hey, I'm gonna give up. I'm not gonna buy them in a physical copy because I don't want to have them in my bookshelf like that. So I was like, if I want to buy them later, then I'm gonna buy probably a box of them, because they were never translated into German or the other parts of the book series, which is pretty sad, honestly. So I just read them on my ebook, and I loved Shadow Me. I was so happy to be back in the universe, and I've missed for so long, and I did not even realize how good the series was until I went back into it. And honestly, I give it 5 stars because I really loved it. I love how Terry Maffei just describes the characters, how the characters act, like the characteristics. I love the romance between the two characters. I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't read the Shadow Me series like at all, but it's basically about the girl who is, well, if you touch her then you die, so her touch is really dangerous. And the story starts off where she's put into a cell because she killed a little boy because she was in a supermarket and she wanted to help the little boy, and she touched him obviously, and that, well, then continued in him dying, and then she was sent far away and they were running all these tests on her. So it's really a dark series, a dark fantasy series, and it's about after, like, it is I think it's called a dystopian fantasy, if I'm correct. Please, if I'm not, then please correct me, because I usually enjoy reading urban fantasy. So yeah, but definitely 5 stars, and I really love it, and I could see myself reading it again. So the second book that I read was the Fabie, because I just couldn't stop, and I was so, I don't know, it was also, Shadow Me was the book that I read like the fastest since, I don't know, since middle school probably, because I haven't read that much and consistently in all these years, because then I had to do my A-levels, and then I came to university, and then I was surrounded by all these new people in this new unknown situation that I had to get accompanied with, and all this new stress about uni assignments. But I read it like really fast, and then I wanted to go on and stay in this reading mode kinda, and then I read the Fabie, also 5 stars. I love it. It's just a sequel, well, of Shadow Me. After that I wanted to take a break, and I read One of Us Is Next, which is actually also a sequel. It's a sequel to One of Us Is Lying, which I really enjoyed, and I wanted to take a break because I was kind of afraid that if I would just continue reading the series, then my love for reading after reading the series would be like satisfied. I don't know, I was just afraid that I would run out of reading again. So I read this because I actually also did not know that the sequel was already out. I loved it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I don't know, let me check. Yeah, it's 4 stars, but I don't really remember why I only gave it 4 stars. Probably because there was action happening, but it was like not that much, not enough for me to really say it's a 5-star book. And I'm really hard on calling books like 5 stars, so, which is weird to say because I just mentioned that I gave the first books that I read this month 5 stars, but actually it's like, I'm really harsh on giving books 5 stars. Normally, when it is not the Shadow Me series or it's not the Shadowhunter series. Then the one after that, I listened to it. I'm going to include also audiobooks because you might want to read the actual books, but I listen to them when I walk my dog. And it is, I think it's called The Book of Dreams in English. It's also from a German author. It's from Kerstin Gier, and I really love the book. I love listening to it, and I never picked it up. It's also the same author that wrote Sapphire Blue. And I never picked it up because as a teen, when I was reading Ruby Red and Sapphire Blue, it did not seem that interesting to me, and I read, like, at that time I was choosing my books based on the first page that I read and on the back obviously, and it just wasn't it for me. But then I listened to the audiobook, and I mean, it's not for my age. It was definitely not written for people my age, and I enjoyed listening to it, but if I imagine myself reading it, I would probably not have gone through the book. That kind of makes sense, just because it feels weird because you cannot really connect to the characters because they're so young. But it's basically about the girl who dreams, and then in the dream she meets the other people from a school, and then the next day, like, she realizes that, well, it was not only a dream, these people were also dreaming and visiting each other in the dream. It's interesting, it's really interesting, but as I already said, it's probably for younger people and not for people that are like 20 plus. I also gave this book 4 stars because I wanted to be fair to the book without like the regard of me not being able to connect to character because of age. But in itself, I think the book is really good and it's definitely 4-star rating. So then the third book. If you want to call it novella, a book, then you can call a novel a book, but I do not really, because it's like in ebook pages, I think it was 100 pages maximum, and that's just not like suitable for me to call it a book, and it doesn't feel like I've read a book. It's more like I read a short story that also plays in the same universe, and I think, if I'm correct, it was called Defy Me, and it was written from, oh gosh, I think it was written from Kenji's perspective, and I really enjoyed it because I love him as a character. I mean, before you wanna record your first video, you should check if your SD card has enough free space, because mine didn't, obviously. That's why I'm back. And now I think actually that my camera is about to die, but we're gonna just carry through it. So the next book that I read after this was Review Me, also by Fabie. It is a novel, and it was written from Kenji's perspective, if I'm correct. And I actually really enjoyed it, but since it's like, it's not the main plot line, it kind of supports the main plot line, but it is just not the main plot line, so I gave it 4 stars. But I mean, it's really good, and he also has some romance stuff going on, and I love romance, so that was really a part that I enjoyed most about it. After this, I read Imagine Me, which is the last book in the Shadow Me series, and I really enjoyed it. There wasn't much romance going on, but it did not bother me as much as I thought it would, so I gave it 5 stars in the end, because I liked the ending very much of the whole plot line. And after this, there's also like a novel that's called Believe Me, and I don't know, I feel like it kind of tries to make up for the romance that is missing in Imagine Me, and not in a good way, at least for me, because I love closed door romance, and my threshold where like open door romance begins is very low, and this just wasn't it for me. I mean, I gave Imagine Me like 5 stars, but this novel, Believe Me, it has 2.5 stars, and I'm being nice. So it's kind of really sad, because I was so excited when I saw that there was a novel after the final book of the series, but then yeah, it wasn't just it for me. So then a book that I came across actually because of Haley Pam, because I started watching her videos and I started watching other book YouTubers in general after I started picking up reading again, is Better Than the Movies, and it's just basically, it's kind of the most basic young adult rom-com you could imagine, but that's why I loved it so much. I love rom-coms, and I mean, normally if you read books you feel like you're watching a movie, but this was really like written like it could just actually be a movie. Just nothing has to be changed. I don't really know how to explain it. The cute thing about the book was that every chapter started with a movie quote out of a romance movie. It was so cute. I love this book. I flew through it, and I could definitely see myself reading it again, and I rated it 5 stars. So, and this was actually the last book that I read in February. I started 2 more books. The first one was Gender Troubles, which is basically a book how the terms gender, like female and male and all stuff like that. So it's a non-fiction book really, and it just interested me because we touched onto the topic in one of my ethics courses. And then I went to another lecture about gender studies, and it just intrigued me so much to learn more about it, but I had to put it down. I mean, I would have probably finished it by now, but I put it down because it was just so much theoretical stuff going on, and then I had my classes and it was all already enough academic, honestly, and I just have to process everything. But I definitely would pick it up again in March. But then I also had a stopover in a train station for like 3 hours, and there was a bookshop, and I mean, my personal challenge this year is to not buy any more physical books, because I mean, I kind of broke the rule with buying ebooks, but I want to finish my physical TBR. Not this year, but I want to finish my physical TBR, or at least half of it, before I'm going to buy another physical book, which obviously excludes any books that Cassandra Clare publishes, right? Because, I mean, I already got the last book, but I'm probably gonna read that in March too, if I get back home, because it was shipped to Germany and not to the Netherlands because the shipping was too expensive, honestly. Because I didn't want to pay the same amount I paid for the book for the shipping. Yes, which is kind of sad because I really want to read it, because it's also the last book of the new trilogy she wrote. So, right, we were at the bookstore and I looked at books. I was browsing through the books, obviously not going to buy any of these, right? And also they were in German, and most of the times the book is available in English, then will read it in English to improve my English. And I also kind of like to read in English more than to read in German, if it's not, like, if the book was not originally published in it, because then I feel like it's ridiculous to read it in English, honestly. I'm sorry for anyone, if I'm offending anyone with that. Yeah, and then I found the book You've Reached Sam. And I read the back of the book, and it is about a girl who just lost her boyfriend and she's grieving, and then suddenly she comes to the idea like calling his number one time again because she just feels so lost. And Sam, which was her boyfriend, actually answers the call, so it's so sweet so far. I'm also like almost finished with it, so I'm gonna finish it in March definitely. And I'm gonna pick gender studies up again, and I'm gonna read the new book from Christina Claire. I don't know if I'm gonna get anything else to read. I'm planning on starting the Cruel Prince series. I did not read anything of it. I don't know about what it is essentially, honestly, because I just heard like my best friend read it and she recommended it to me without like really saying about what it is. But it's just like fantasy, that's all that I know, and the covers look pretty. So I'm gonna read that. But we see how much I'm actually going to read this month, because I also have my exam season coming up here. So I also have to study a lot. And if you're studying philosophy, you probably know that there are a lot of things that philosophers think about, and a lot of things you have to study and remember and, first of all, understand somehow, because some of them are really complicated. So that's for my February wrap up and my possibly wishing TBR for March or not. We're gonna see. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm gonna see you next time. Bye!